Mitzvah, we're going to do 2 halachas today. We're starting halach Daled, Kufshi base halach Daled. We're in the middle of the halachas of Pas Yisrael. The Mechaber said that you need, if Pas Yisrael is available, you can't eat Pas Paltar. And now he's within that din, those din that if you have a choice, there's going to be 2 examples here of cases where you had sort of a choice, and whether you do or don't have to do it. So the Mechaber says, Makom she'en Paltar Yisrael matzui. If there's a place where there's no Paltar Yisrael available, das hamatir and likach Pas Paltar every kachavim. Now we're going within the sheet that holds you can buy Pas Paltar, meaning when there's no Pas Yisrael available, you're allowed to buy it. So you did that. That's what you did. In Megiya Sham Paltar Yisrael, what happens if a Paltar Yisrael shows up? Okay, the truck pulls up, and all of a sudden they have Pas Yisrael foods. So then, Hari Pas Paltar every kachavim asura. Then temporarily, the Pas Paltar that the guy made is usher, because now Pas Yisrael is available. Ad Shim Paltar Yisrael Pitay, until he sells out all of his stuff. After there's no more Pas Yisrael available, then then it goes back to being mutter again. Okay, so what happened is you're in a place that has no Pas Yisrael, it's not available, so according to the Mechaber, you're allowed to eat it. Now you're allowed to eat it. If temporarily someone shows up who has Pas Yisrael, then you're not allowed to eat your Pas Paltar, you have to eat Pas Yisrael. Now, so we'll get to, wait 1 second.
So you have it already.
Okay, get to that in a second. We'll get to that in a second. So the first thing is that the Shach says, is that this whole thing is within the sheet of the Mechaber. The Ramah who holds you can always eat Pas Paltar no matter what. It's mutter. It's so obvious what the Shach says that the Pri Megadim says, I don't even know what the Shach bothers to say. Okay, but that's the Shach does say it. Now, the Gra says that what's going on over here is that the Mechaber who holds that Pas Paltar is only mutter when there's no Pas Yisrael available. That means to say it's really not mutter. Because you're stuck. That you're stuck. You can't eat it, so Chazal let you eat it, or the Chacham later let you eat this bread. So it's like a temporary heter. It's a long-term temporary heter. But you have to keep thinking about it. So if a guy pulls up with a truck that he has Pas Yisrael, so then you're not allowed to use it anymore. In other words, you have to realize that you're always eating something that's not so great to be eating. So if it ever comes a chance that there's no darchat, you're available, so then you're going to go eat it. Okay, and in the Chalkas B'Yam, from B'Yam L'Kon, he explains the point here, which brings out the chiddush of this din is that it's not just that if you live in Chicago, where we have Pas Yisrael available, you're not allowed to buy Pas Paltar. It's even temporarily, it's like a day-to-day decision, can I eat this bread, can I not eat this bread? Before we got to this din, we would have said, you got to just sit down and say, look, where do I live? Is it available? It's not available. If I live no place and there's no Pas Yisrael available, so then fine, I can eat Pas Paltar. But the Mechaber is telling us now that it's like a day-to-day decision. If it becomes available, then you got to buy it. Well, the way we would say it is, it's a product-by-product decision. Okay, for us, let's say bread is available Pas Yisrael. So then we say, okay, bread is available Pas Yisrael, we have to eat bread. Let's say pizza would not be Pas Yisrael. So then pizza, we'd be allowed to eat not Pas Yisrael.
Because I can't get it.
Because I can't get that as Pas Paltar. I can't get a Pas Yisrael. I can eat it Pas Paltar. So just like for us, we do product by product, so to speak. Is it available or is it not available? The Mechaber is saying you're doing it like a day-to-day, which is a chiddush. That's the point of the Mechaber is the chiddush, that even though it's like a day-to-day thing, you could do that.
Question. When Chazal were conveyed this Isser of Pas Paltar, so we say over here if it's available, not available, is Tircha going to the question, means saying it's like this, I got to go to, in order for me to get Pas Yisrael, how? Is it 1 meal, 2 meal back, like by Sukkah?
That's where I'm headed. I'm going there.
I know you work.
I'm going to mention it.
I see how you work.
Okay. Now, the Shach says what Yossi talked about. The Shach talks about what happens if the guy has bread already. The Shach says if the person has bread already, I bought Pas Paltar yesterday, and today the truck shows up with Pas Yisrael, the Shach says you're allowed to eat it anyhow. Once you bought it, you're allowed to keep on eating it. That's what the Shach says. It's a question whether the Mechaber means that or the Mechaber doesn't mean that. That's a to-do. And there are even some Achronim who say, no, you're not allowed to. The stuff in your freezer is usher until there's no more Pas Yisrael available. But most people hold that it's once you bought it and you have the stuff in your house, you're allowed to eat it. It's a shiloh within the Shach. Does the Mechaber mean that and the Mechaber not mean that? It's a question of the gears here in the Mechaber. It's not again. The bottom line is that if you bought it already and it was mutter, you could eat it. Okay? But it comes so in the Chalkas B'Yam has a very interesting application to this din, okay, which this din itself is not so lemaisa to us, but the case that he brings, the case that he sort of brings is more relevant to us, especially to people who travel. Okay, Shalom just came back from Japan. Okay, in Japan, there's no pas Yisrael, I assume, available. So he went into the bakery there, and he bought something. He went to the store there, and he found something with a hechsher on it. Or you go to Arizona, and there's no pas Yisrael available. You go into the supermarket, and you buy a loaf of bread. You have your piece of bread. It's not pas Yisrael. You eat it. Okay, and now you come back home, and in your suitcase, you still have some stuff. So you just went from, you bought this bread, you bought this bread in a place where there was no pas Yisrael available. You were allowed to buy the bread. You're allowed to eat the bread, and for a week you're eating that bread. And now you come home and there's a sandwich in your suitcase. Are you allowed to eat that sandwich? Because now you're in a place where pas Yisrael is available. So if you're within the sheet of the mechaber, so it's the opposite case of the mechaber. Not that you're in the place and the baker came to you. For us, it's more like the other way, which is you were in a place where you were allowed to buy it, and now you show up and you got these things in your pocket. Are you allowed to eat that food or not? Okay. So he says, just like the mechaber says that this is mutter, that's mutter in our case, it's mutter the other way also. Just like it's mutter if it's mutter when there's, he's just, the mechaber says that, just that I just said to you from the shach, that if you bought it beheter, you're allowed to keep eating it. So too in the case that I just described to you, if you bought it beheter, you're allowed to keep on eating it. Okay, that's how he says it. Once you bought it beheter, you're allowed to keep on eating it. And I think it's correct. I just want to point out that there's a drop of a difference between the cases, which is that in the case of the mechaber, the guy who bought the bread, from his perspective, it was free and clear. In his mind, he was going to be able to eat this bread forever. He lives in a place where there's no pas Yisrael. So he bought it like sort of behead, like with a complete, a complete had to buy it, and it's sort of like not fear to turn that bread and make it usher for him later. As opposed to if you go to Arizona and over there you're there for a week and you buy a loaf of bread, that person is buying it beheter, but he's buying it like as a temporary kula. It's not the same to say over there that you say when you get home, like it's not, we can't make you not eat that bread. It's not the same thing. The person who lives in Arizona, he buys the bread, every day that's what he eats, so then it's like sort of not fair to say to him, no, now your food became choice because somebody showed up to town. It's like not fair to you. But if you go to visit Arizona, it's not the same sort of unfairness, so to speak, to say that your bread is not kosher anymore because you were there, you bought it. Okay, I think he's right in here. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm saying it's a drop of a different case. Okay.
Well, is it the Rabbanans? I mean, when the Rabbanan makes this, it's in the Gavra that they don't have the koyach to answer a chepsa. They do the Gavra. So therefore, they were koveya, like you're saying. You Gavra when you're in this matzah, you're allowed to eat it. That's
okay. Okay, now.
So it's not on they're talking about you.
Okay, what happens if what happens if the case of the mechaber, that there's a Jewish baker shows up? Okay, what happens if the baker's not here? But I know that every Friday afternoon at noon, the baker shows up. The truck with the pas Yisrael shows up at noon, and now it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm hungry. I want some breakfast. So right now I have only pas Paltar available. And right now I'm allowed to eat it, but I know that in 2 hours from now there's going to be a truck pulling up with the pas Yisrael. Okay, so does that mean there's pas Yisrael available? Because the guy's coming. The guy's coming to town.
You want to eat now?
But I want to eat now. So that's a shayla.
Okay, what's the shayla? It's like Arizona.
What's that mean? How are you going to take the shayla?
It's more.
It's the half a day. It's 3/4 of the day.
The answer is that I'm not going to tell you. It's totally in a seeming stira between the Ramah in Halacha Ches and the Mechaber and Halacha Ches. Okay, so when we get to one of those places, we'll talk about it. Okay, there's a question about what this kind of a case of how much like this kind of stuff. It's totally done later. We're not going to do. We'll leave it for now. Okay, let's go to Halacha. Okay, Halacha. Yesh Amrim. Yesh. Now this you'll see seems more practical to us. Yesh Amrim. There are those who say Shemish Yesh B'Yadei Pas. He already owns bread. Oy Sheyesh. That's one case. He owns pas, meaning pas Paltar. Oy Sheyesh Paltar Yisrael. There's pas Yisrael available in town. V'yesh Paltar Ev Kechavim Oysa Pas Yafim Menu. But the pas Paltar makes a better bread. Or Mimin Acher She'en B'Yadei Shal Paltar Yisrael. Or he makes a different type of bread. I have rye bread and he only makes white bread. Okay, so there were 3 cases here. One is that I already have the bread, so it's equal, but the advantage is that I already have it in hand. Or that the not Jewish baker makes a better bread or a different style of bread. Okay, so again, these are 3 cases that pas Yisrael is available. That's the point. There is pas Yisrael available, but there's an advantage to the pas Paltar. Okay, I'm not going to starve if I don't eat the pas Yisroel, but I'm not going to have what I want. Okay, for one of these three reasons, there's something that I would prefer to the Pas Yisroel.
We're not talking health reasons, obviously, over here, because that might be a different getter.
Okay, fine. Mutter, let's nice be Paltar Kuchavim. You could buy from the Paltar Kuchavim. The Makar Shnog will have to pass Paltar. In cases, according to those, and according to the Mechaber that says that if there's a choice, you have to pick Pas Yisroel. In this case, you're allowed to pick the Pas Paltar. Why? The Kivin the Daitoi Noiche Yosef Pas Paltar. Since I prefer this Pas Paltar because it's better for me, so therefore, it's another example of being pas t'chukaloi, and I'm allowed to eat the bread, even though there's other bread available. Okay, I like rolls, and they only have bread. I'm allowed to buy the rolls at a pas paltar because for me it's considered that they don't have that, or it's considered pas t'chukaloi. Okay, now the tour brings this din from a Rashba. Okay, this din that we read over here is from the Rashba. Okay, and the Tur is a kasha. He says, if you look at the Yerushalmi says that you're only allowed to eat bread. You're only allowed to eat pas palta when it's pas t'chukaloi, okay, which gives the impression that there's mamash nothing to eat. So how could the Rashba say that if this guy makes white bread and I like rye bread, I'm allowed to eat it, when the Yerushalmi says the only time you're allowed to eat pas palta is when it's pas t'chukaloi. It's like which sounds like there's like nothing to eat. You have nothing to eat. Then you're allowed to eat pas palter.
Yerushalmi is pas palter.
It's saying that you can eat pas palter.
Pas palter.
Yes.
Okay.
Instead of eating. Yes, you can eat pas palter instead of pas yisrael. So he asked on the Rashba. How could you tell me that if you have a preference of one over the other, you're allowed to eat it? That's not what the Yerushalmi said. The Yerushalmi said if you had preference, but you were stuck, then you're allowed to eat it. Okay, that's his kasha. So
the Mechaber is based on the Rashba. The Mechaber says.
Right. So don't tell what the Mechaber says. I know. Just hold that for a second, because before we get to what the Mechaber says, no. The Mechaber says is already including the answer to this question. Okay. I should have stopped in the middle because the Mechaber is including the answer. But before I tell you what the Beis Yosef's answer to the kasha is, the Beis Yosef just like. Okay, this is Musar saying it. The Beis Yosef says something like that. I have to read you the words. The Beis Yosef doesn't like the kasha. Okay, listen to how he doesn't like the kasha. He says, "Mashma mitvarov sheharashbo leroh hayushalmi hazeh." He says the Torah is giving the implication that the Raj either missed Yerushalmi or he forgot the Yerushalmi. Okay, he says because he's implying that if he would have known this Yerushalmi, he would have never written that. The one who he knows, like the Gemara says, he knows the streets up in the sky. He knows, which way to turn to meet the Oifanim and the Chayas. He knows which way to go for each one of these things. He said, you can't even be choshed that he would forget a Yerushalmi and say something like that. So the Yisrael doesn't even like the kasha. He says, I don't even like it. Like, you're not entitled to, you can learn a different shot in Yerushalmi and then ask the kasha. But you're not even entitled to ask that kind of a question. Okay. Then, that's just the Musar, just putting things in perspective. But then the Beis Yosef says that, unfortunately, he now turns the table on the Torah. And he says, the Torah only owned the Torah's Habayis HaKotzer. Okay, the Raj B'Sefer on a lot of halachas are called Torah's Habayis, which is written in a long version and a short version. Okay, and the Torah only had the Torah's Habayis HaKotzer. At least for these halachas, only had the short version. Okay, the halacha l'maisa. Like he was only reading the Shulchan Aruch, not the Beis Yosef. He says, and if he would have looked, if he would have had the Torah's Habayis Aruch, he would have saw that the Rashba himself talks about kasha. So you're asking a kasha on the Rashba. What about the Yerushalmi? If you would have had the Torah's Habayis Aruch, you would see that the Rashba himself brings the Yerushalmi and weaves it into the halacha. He doesn't ignore it. He well understood it, and it's part of this thing. What does he say? He says what our Shulchan Aruch adds those extra words to what the Torah brings, which is that the Rashba says once Chazal said that you could eat pas palter when it's the chukaloi, the Chazal were telling you that it's mutter anytime you're not getting what you're supposed to be having. It's not. I mean, don't think of the Yerushalmi as saying it's a heter like if a guy's a shasat chag. There's somebody who's going to we know who's going to the hospital today. Okay, and that person might not make it home for Shabbos. So we're going to say that Amir La'akim might be mutter to take him home because he has a chayla and he's stuck. It's not like that kind of a heter because you're so stuck. So you're allowed to do Amir La'akim to bring you home from the hospital. That's not what we're talking about like that. He says the Chazal will matter it. When they matter it means that they're saying the issue is off because in cases when it's difficult. So, if it's the same, if it's rye bread and rye bread, then you have no right to choose one over the other. But as long as there's some kind of a difficulty, that's how the Rajba understands that even the Yerushalmi would be matter in this case. Okay, that's how he understands Yerushalmi. Okay, so those are the Chaber adds extra words to what it says in the Rajba or what it says in the Torah to weave that into the answer. That's what you said. Well, the Chaber answered that question better because he's including the answer in my invited thing. Okay, now. This question of whether I like the bread, I like rye bread and I don't like white bread, okay, is very personal. Okay? That is to say, what the Torah wanted was that we should take like an objective standard. We should say is, if you have nothing to eat, then you could buy it. If you have something to eat, then you can't buy it. It doesn't depend on what my preference is. And the Machaber, the Rajba, are taking a much more personal way of looking at it. If I like whole wheat bread instead of rye bread, I'm allowed to choose this one over that one. And if you don't care, then you can't choose it. It depends on you. Okay? And that's sort of including the word in the case of the Mechaber says. Because one case he says is that there's a min acher she'e biyad Paltar. He makes rye bread and he makes only white bread. It's like two different types. So that's somewhat of an objective standard that if he doesn't make the same thing, I'm not allowed to. He doesn't make pizza. So what am I supposed to do? I want to eat pizza. They don't make pizza in Tel Aviv bakery. Okay, so what am I supposed to do? Okay, that's one. But the Mechaber's other case, which is, I lost the place. The Mechaber's other case is that the Paltar Kohen is oisa pasu yofa mimenu means is it's the same min. It's the same thing. They make rye bread and rye bread, but I like his rye bread more than his rye bread. That like bringing out the point that when it's a subjective standard, you could even use a subjective standard to choose one over the other one. It's rye bread and rye bread. So what's the difference?
Right.
Well, the difference is that I like this rye bread instead of that rye bread. So that's like sort of bringing out the point of what the Raj was trying to say, that it could be very subjective, and if I like this one better than that one, I'm entitled. That's considered, there's no pas paltar available. There's no pas Yisroel available. Yes.
So when we say a duchaka because he likes one better than the other one, let's say one is $1 cheaper than
That's
the
what
other.
I'm coming. You asked it. I told you again. We have right now. You're right.
No, I just said, how
So-
far I have to go.
So-
I'll steer I'm talking about money.
It's the same question. So the question is,
Okay.
what would you say now if there's no preference or difference to the bread? It's not a different type of bread. It's not I don't like it better. It's nothing like that. Just that what's closer. I would rather go to this store instead of that store. Or this one costs 10 cents less than that one.
In the same store.
In the same store, and I just have a choice. I'm standing in front of them. So there's no difference to the bread. The bread is completely equal. When I'm going to get home, it's going to taste the same to me. But I have another preference as to picking this bread over that bread. Okay, so is that included in what the Mechaber is saying here? The cases that he has are cases that I like this one over the other one. I don't like rye bread and I want white bread, whichever one, something like that. But as opposed to what happens here, there's nothing but etzem in the food. Okay, so in the Chalkas B'Yamim, he makes a diuk in the Mechaber to say that you're not allowed to do it in that case. In that case, you're not allowed to buy it. And his diuk is, the Mechaber says some extra words. He says, the kivan the daita nocha yosef b'pas palter zeh. He likes this pas palter better, and then he adds in mipnei chashivusay be'enav, because it's more chashuv in his eyes. Why is he saying mipnei chashivusay be'enav?
Because it's cheaper.
He's being medayik that mipnei chashivusay be'enav, that the bread is better. The Mechaber is only being meko in cases where the bread is better. Even in my eyes, but in my eyes, the bread is better. But if the bread is equal, and just some other kind of convenience, nothing related to the pas itself, then he says he wants to be indicted. You can't do it. Which I don't think that that's correct.
What's it, guys?
He makes this thing. He doesn't bring it from somebody. And I was takas. No. I was takas. Well, it's close.
I don't know if he's a kind. Is he a kind?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not there.
We're related through marriage. But
no, he was related somehow.
but I'm even surprised that I didn't see in Poskim talking about it. Maybe there are. I haven't seen it in Poskim talking about this. I would think it was a very practical shadow.
According to the Mechaber.
It's only right. That's probably why they don't talk about it, because according to the Ramah, this is not a shadow at all. Okay, but the reason why I question what he's saying is because the Mechaber said that it's even mutter, even when it's not mimenu, it's even a nicer bread. The breads are basically equal. To me, it's nicer. I understand that's a difference in the bread itself.
Right.
But if you're being so subjective, you're so much letting me, what I want, choose. So really what he's saying is closer to what the Torah said. Because the Mechaber is saying, like the Rashba, that it's completely what I prefer over the other thing. We're not really looking at an objective standard like, are you going to starve, or are you going to be very hungry, or you're going to not have anything to eat. You like this one better now. This one looks a little nicer than that one. You're allowed to choose that. So that surely sounds like it's what I like better. Why can't what I like be included in? I'd rather not schlep to the store or spend another 50 cents.
So that would be the same thing. According to Chalkas Binyamin, I'd have to get into my car if I could walk to the store, or if I have to get into my car and drive 3 miles to the store. I'd be machliv to get into my car and go get it for
According to the Mechaber, correct. According
The
to the
way
Mechaber,
he's understanding
according to the Mechaber, it's only if there's an advantage to the bread, to one bread over the other. Even a personal advantage, but there's some kind of advantage.
Right. In the bread itself.
Excuse me, within the bread itself. But if the advantage is just to me, I mean, not in the bread itself, then he says,
Okay, that's the
I
Mechaber.
wouldn't, that's what he wants to say. Oh, you're right. Oh, this is only in the Mechaber. Right. In the Ramah, it's completely, but which is like us.
Well, it's okay to spur them.
Yeah, it's again, or people who try to be machmir for the Mechaber. Whatever. That's okay. Now, there's a possible riot to what he says. Okay, I'm not convinced that it's right, but there's a possible riot.
You didn't like it from the fact that it's pas yafa menu?
No, the fact that we're saying that pas yafa mimenu,
Yeah.
it's true it's talking about there's a preference within the
Yes.
bread, but that's showing that it's so subjective. The breads are really equal to me.
That's
I
the
can,
quality of the bread.
right? I know that you can tell me that it's within the quality of it, but if we're letting you so much choose by what you like better, okay, just something better about this bread over that, but this is a shinier bread than that bread, then that's giving me my
subjective.
so much. That means pas l'chukala. Don't take it so seriously. Don't take pas l'chukala. It's only like when you're starving. Right? Okay, so that's a question. I'm telling you that he says no. I said even the diet. But in the last halacha, there's a possible right to his way from the last halacha, because like this, I said to you that there's a shaila. What happens if a person bought pas paltar, and then the truck with the pas Yisroel showed up, and the din is that it's mutter. You're allowed to eat it, but there's a shaila with that. Now, if I bought the pas paltar, already. It's in my house. And it's obviously not talking about a case where it's better than the pas Yisroel, because if it would be better, it doesn't make difference that I would be allowed to buy it. So it's equal. The bread that I have is equal to that bread. Now, the bread that's in my house that I have, isn't it obvious that I prefer that bread over going out to buy new pas Yisroel? Isn't it automatic? The breads are equal. This is rival and that's rival. They're exactly the same. But isn't it automatic that if the bread's in my house, that I have a preference to that bread over the bread that's in the truck?
The money.
Either because of the money or because of the convenience of it, because there's an obvious advantage to the bread that's in my house. Okay, but yet we're not saying in halacha dal. There's a question: should that bread be mutter or asur? Now, if that bread would be better, there wouldn't be a shayla. Well, I'm saying it is better. It's automatically better because it's more convenient, because it's already in my house, or it's better because it's cheaper because I don't have to buy a new loaf. So shouldn't we say that halacha daled, that shayla about the bread that's in my house is automatically that it's a better bread because I already have it. So having it means that it's a better bread. So the answer is the reason why we don't consider that to be better, and therefore a shayla shouldn't be mutter, and that is because there's nothing better about the bread per se. This is right, but like that's right. But the only advantage is a non-food advantage. It's I'm saving a schlep and I'm saving some money like that. It's not within the food itself. Mm-hmm. And therefore there's a shayla. Maybe since I bought it should be mutter. It's not. The din is that it's mutter. I'm not talking about the din. I'm talking about the shayla. Why is there a shayla? Is because we're viewing that bread as not better. It's not considered a better bread than the pasta. So therefore you might have to go buy it. So that's a potential. Here's something that's right. But that's a potential riot to what he said. Okay.
Correct him.